Shall go on with the Committee on Culture and Education. We have received textual changes from the committee. Committee, this is your resolution. I would like you to pop that. Thank you. Thank you very much. They have. I'll give it back to you. They have proposed to change clause number 1, and the new proposed clause number 1 is as follows. Requests that all the member states of the European Union establish separate smoking areas out of the sight of students in all public educational institutions of the member states where it is not forbidden to smoke. One more time. This is clause number 1, and they have proposed to change it. Requests that all the member states of the European Union establish separate smoking areas out of the sight of students in all public educational institutions of the member states where it is not forbidden to smoke. Then they have asked to change the clause number 7. There's only a slight change. They have decided to change a phrase or a word. 7a. Prohibit the advertising of junk food. That is it. They just changed fast food into junk food. Prohibit the advertising of junk food. 7b. Prohibit the advertising of junk food. Again, prohibit the advertising of junk food. Who from the committee may ask to read out the resolution? Estonia.
Thank you, Mr. President. So we are the Committee on Culture and Education 1, resolution on the question of children's health. Should the European Union play a role in protecting children from alcohol and drug abuse, smoking and unhealthy eating habits? If so, how should European Union regulation relate to national regulation in this field? The Model European Parliament requests that all the member states of the European Union establish segregated smoking areas out of the sight of students in all public educational institutions of the member states where it is not forbidden to smoke. Encourages the member states of the European Union to introduce healthcare classes held by teachers, experts, or guest lecturers in the existing school curriculum without adding any extra hours. Approves the creation of the EU DCA, which will implement tougher measures for drug dealers, traffickers, and producers of either soft or hard drugs. Suggests the cooperation between the EU DCA, the governments of the member states in order to decide on the creation of designated venues where soft drugs can be legally supplied to citizens over the age of 18 according to the following conditions. A, that all consumers possess an electronic chip card to limit and control the consumption of drugs. B, that the quantity of the drugs purchased is controlled by the EU DCA. And C, that the drugs must be consumed at the designated venue within which they were purchased. Recommends that the government of each member state increases the minimum taxation on unhealthy food products and decreases the taxation on healthy food products. Supports the promotion of healthy food products by marking them with a common European symbol. Calls upon the advertising authorities of each member state to prohibit the advertising of junk food during programs and films in television and before films in cinemas if 50% of the audience is expected to be under the age of 18. B, prohibit the advertising of junk food during programs and films on television and before films in the cinema if 30% of the audience is expected to be under the age of 12. Consider the possibility of completely banning the advertisements mentioned above. Encourages the government of each member state to ban smoking and alcohol advertisements between television programs if 30% of the viewers are under the LPA or to ban them completely. supports the removal of information about free gifts from advertisements attracting children to unhealthy food consumption within the member states, draws the attention of the model European Parliament to the creation of a fund supervised by the EFSA, which partially finances every public school in each member state of the European Union to promote a balanced diet among students, instructs the President to forward the resolution to the European Parliament and the European Commission and the Council of Ministers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Who from the committee may I ask to give the opening speech? Bulgaria.
Thank you, Mr. President. Honorable Presidents, distinguished guests, and dear fellow delegates. Nowadays, drug and alcohol abuse, smoking, and fast food consumption among children are some of the most important problems concerning our society. The Committee on Culture and Education analyzed thoroughly all the factors that contribute to the issue and reached a consensus on how to deal with it. Fortunately, the consequences of unhealthy eating habits, especially among minors, are completely preventable for the majority of them. Outstanding results could be achieved through educating students about food and decreasing the impact of the advertisements which influence their choice. Not the same thing can be said about alcohol and smoking because of the falling age barrier when people start abusing them. The measures recommended are the best compromise between civil liberties, human rights, and the implementation of law in the different member states of the European Union. The most controversial part of the topic is the one concerning drugs. However, it is important to notice that our committee has taken into consideration every aspect of this issue in order to protect the children from the bad influence of narcotic substances. Along with education, we further believe that the best option is to fight the black market by legalizing soft drugs for people aged 18 or more under supervision and through the usage of chip cards. This way is the easiest one to prevent addiction to them. We are deeply aware of the fact that you might not agree with such a proposal, but our committee hopes that you will also consider its advantages. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you very much. We now move on to factual questions. 103, Austria.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a question about concerning OC4. Could you give me the definition of soft drugs?
Soft drugs, France.
Thank you, Mr. President. Soft drugs are from natural origins and hard drugs are chemicals. Thank you.
Thank you very much. 87, France.
Thank you, Mr. President. Regarding clause number 3, can you please clarify what you mean by tougher measures?
What are tougher measures? Denmark.
Thank you, Mr. President. What we mean by tougher measure is that we are going to penalty, more harsh penalties against people who will still sell illegal drugs and people who will outside of the coffee shop or special places where we would like to legalize soft drugs. If they still sell them outside, we hope so that we can make the punishment against them more harsh.
Thank you very much. Number 6, Sweden.
Thank you, Mr. President. In OC number 2, you state that healthcare classes should be introduced without adding any extra hours. And my question is this possible without cutting down any courses?
Is this a factual question?
What?
Is this a factual question? What do you think? Is it? Okay, let it be a factual question. Who would like to answer? Germany.
Thank you, Mr. President. We are of the opinion that this is possible because there are experts who are going to hold these lectures, and they are going to contact the schools before they are going to hold the lecture, and for that classes are going to be pushed free in the school curriculum, so that these lectures are going to be held during in school times where actually other classes should be. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Now we move on with factual questions. Number 9, United Kingdom.
Thank you, Mr. President. Regarding OC number 4, has the committee decided how they would enforce the drugs being consumed in a designated venue?
Can you please maybe rephrase the question or come to the point? What do you want to know?
How would you enforce the drugs being consumed in that venue?
What enforces the venue? Who? The Netherlands, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. We created an organ named the Jutka who should provide those, who should make sure that people consume the drugs within the store. Thank you.
That drugs are consumed in the store. 28, Romania.
Thank you, Mr. President. My question concerns OC number 9. What do you mean by free gifts from advertisements? Thank you.
Luxembourg.
Thank you, Mr. President. But this means, for example, when you go to McDonald's, you get in the Happy Meal, you get a gift, and it attracts children to eat McDonald's.
Mickey D gifts. Number 113, Belgium.
Thank you, Mr. President. Why is a potato considered as junk food and compared to corn chips and pretzels?
Why are potatoes considered? Can you actually please rephrase the question? Yes.
Thank you. Why is a potato considered as junk food and compared to corn chips and pretzels?
Why is a potato compared to corn chips and pretzels? Why is a potato junk food? Slovak Republic. Quiet, please, quiet. Let the committee answer.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is actually a mistake. It should be potato chips.
The committee has admitted. Of course, potato is not a junk food. Number 64, Estonia.
Thank you, Mr. President. My question is about OC number 4, where you say that all consumers possess an electronic chip card. So where and when would one get this electronic chip card?
Where will the Estonian delegate get this chip card? Where will she get the chip card from? Malta.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President. Well, these kind of chip cards are provided by the government, and the fund of the European Union will provide the money to create these kind of things. Thank you.
Thank you. Number 48, Lithuania.
Thank you, dear President. Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, my question regarding to OC number 9. You are saying that you are talking about removal of information. So that means just about information, or are you talking about them removing those presents from the giving to children?
Estonia.
Thank you, Mr. President. So we are not talking about removing the gifts completely from the Happy Meals or anything. We're only talking about the advertisements and removing the gifts from the advertisements so children wouldn't be attracted by the gifts to eat the unhealthy meals.
Number Lithuania again, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. But don't you think that this could cause a bad business for those people? you can't just ban this. It's like
this is not a factual question.
Okay,
You may question this during the General Assembly open debate. Number 47, Malta. Number 47.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to ask the committee what is the borderline between soft and hard drugs.
What is the borderline between soft and hard drugs? Spain.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, as Franz said before, soft drugs are those who are natural, they've got a natural origin, and hard drugs are those who have chemicals in their composition. Thanks.
Soft drugs are organic and hard drugs are chemical drugs. 109, Czech Republic.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. In Belgium, beer is considered as a hard drug. So it's natural, but it is a hard drug. Can you give a right definition of soft and hard drugs?
The Netherlands. Silence, please. Please be silent.
I don't think the representative of Belgium has an official term. I think it's considered more amongst the public. Maybe you call it hard drugs, because as far as I know, hard drugs are illegal, but I can still drink a beer in Belgium.
Thank you very much. 107, Bulgaria.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a couple of points to raise, but I guess I'll stick to one. With the advertising of authorities, with all these restrictions on advertising, wouldn't that be some form of censorship with, freedom of speech and restriction of that kind of thing?
You may ask this during the open debate. We're asking only factual questions. Do you have a factual questions among those questions which you had?
Yeah, I have one as well, actually.
Very good.
Okay, one would be fats, in particular of animal origin, in the appendix. Aren't those kind of necessary? Would you perhaps be referring to trans fats, which are actually in all cases bad, but some fats of animal origin are necessary for the human body to function. So what do you mean?
Which fats do you consider in your resolution? Franz.
Thank you, Mr. President. As we say it in the definition, which is in the appendix, like potato and like fats from animal origin, they are good normally, but if you abuse them, then it's unhealthy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Number 85, Finland.
Thank you, Mr. President. What is the limit of drugs that the chip card allows? How much drugs can I take, basically?
Germany.
Well, we installed the EU DCA to clarify questions like, as you stated. So they're going to talk about this during talks. Yeah.
'81, Denmark.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just have a question about clause number 4. You've said that it has to be legally supplied to citizens over the age of 18. Why have you chosen the age of 18? Because, for example, in some countries, the age of drinking legally is higher. So why have you chosen this age?
Why can't younger children consume drugs? Denmark.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, first of all, there isn't any LPA for soft drugs across Europe because it isn't legal yet. Second of all, we have chosen 18 because we have defined children as being under 18, which it says in our resolution. Therefore, well, our topic is to protect children. So therefore, we have to pick the age limit of 18.
98, Germany.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm just wondering whether you could give us a definition on junk food again, because I really don't get the problem of pretzels, and it's kind of weird for me, just to make that clear again.
Junk food is weird for the German delegate. Please explain what is junk food. Denmark.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, naturally we are not experts on this subject, and it has actually been, we got it from the appendix or something, the medical dictionary. Well, so we actually just took it, but I think you are going into a detail which isn't that important for the understanding of this subject, because I think we are all aware about what junk food really is. And if you isn't, I think it's a very good idea that we have suggested that there should be some kind of encouragement by teachers and experts to learn it to you in school. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Last questions. Sweden.
Thank you, Mr. President. How will you take into account the fast food chains need to advertise themselves?
Germany.
So we considered that also during our talks about the OC7, and we are of the opinion that children shouldn't be exposure to advertisement which promote unhealthy, which promote junk food. So for that, we decided on this threshold, because also the percentage of children in the EU is approximately 22%. So so the point is that so that adults are addressed to the advertisement, but not youth. And that's why we consider this 30% threshold. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We have received an amendment proposed by the member of the Hungarian delegation, and she has proposed to delete the entire clause number 4. So may I ask the Hungarian delegate to come and give her speech? The Hungarian delegate, please. Yes. Come here, please. There's been a mix-up. She made the amendment against the previous resolution. Lithuania. You have an amendment. Come in front and explain your amendment before you start your speech. So we do have an amendment submitted by a member of the Lithuanian delegation, and he has proposed to delete the clause number 9. Please,
No, wait.
Lithuania.
No, sorry. It's not 9, it's opposite clause number 3. Yeah, it's
Clause number 3, very good.
Yeah,
Let's
sorry
go
for
on.
that. And yeah, thank you for
Silence, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm thinking to delete opposite clause number 3 because they are talking about creation of the EU DCA, which is European Union Drug Control Authority, and I just thought that we have one, which is an agency of EU. It was established in 1993, and it's called the European Monitoring Center for Drugs and Drug Addiction. So I think that there is no need to create another one. We just can make some more things to do for that center, and I think that there's no need to waste our money, European Union money, on creating just like the same thing. And I just don't get the point of these committees. They did the same mistake like Committee on Economic and Monetary Affairs did. They just want to create something what is in the European Union. So I just don't see the point to do that. So I want to delete all clause number 3. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lithuania. Who from the committee may I ask to give the speech against the amendment? The Netherlands. Silence, please. Finland. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Mr. President. During our committee meetings, we also came across this organ, and the only thing I have to say, it wasn't suited for the things we needed it to do. For example, did it have any agents or anything to be able to protect the stores we are supposed to make? So we needed another organ, and yeah, that's right, we needed it, so thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll put this amendment to the vote. The vote starts now. With 45 votes in favour, 90 votes against, no abstentions of course, and with the disapproval of the candidate countries, this amendment has been rejected. Now we move on to open debate. Silence! Silence please. Quiet, please be quiet. Number 80, Italy.
Thank you, Mr. President, for the word given. I would like to bring under the attention of the Assembly that banning smoking and alcohol advertisement between television programs would go against the basic regulations of the capitalistic market, beside the fact that it is extremely difficult to control the audience who is watching the television programs. I wonder why the committee isn't able to find a real solution which doesn't go against modern capitalistic principles.
France.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, I don't think your question is really interesting because if you knew the subject, you knew that, for example, in France, it has already been done and it works really well and the companies don't have any problem with it. So I don't see the point. Thank you.
Turkey.
Thank you, Mr. President. My question is regarding OC number 5. Increasing the taxes of unhealthy foods will affect global fast food companies which supply other sectors too. I do not think that controlling private sector is a good way of solving the problem. I wonder what the committee think about it. Thank you.
Denmark.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, it is a fact across the Europe that it is very, actually vegetables and other healthy stuff of food is very expensive, and therefore it's pretty normal for a European country that it is the parts of the inhabitants that are the poorest is also the part that is the most unhealthy and the one who suffers from obesity, etc. Therefore, would it be a good idea to make healthy food cheaper so they can buy the healthy food and not suffer from obesity? But it costs money to make healthy food cheaper, and therefore we suggest that you get those money by making unhealthy food more expensive. But it has to be said that it probably will be a national affair because we can't interfere in that kind of way. But we will recommend it. Thanks.
Thank you. 88 Hungary.
Thank you, Mr. President. My question to the committee would be, don't you think that 6 through 9 influence the private market a bit too much? And my other question, if I may ask it, would be that how do you wish to expect the audience their ages? Thank you.
Can you please rephrase the question once more?
Yes, which one?
The last one.
Okay, so...
Silence.
My question is, how can you, how do you say, sorry, I just asked the word. So basically, how do you want to expect for a program to have an audience of like 50% of underage people? How can you control it, or how can you look into it? Thank you.
How can you make sure that Germany?
Thank you, Mr. President. To the first question, we are of the opinion then that this is not an interference in the free market economy, because there are several examples where it already worked. For example, the alcohol industry, it is on a voluntarily basis Europe-wide, and it already works. So we can widen it out on smoking and fast food. For example, also in France, this restriction works. To the second question, it was how can you control that? How can you control these 50% or the 30% threshold? In fact, there are many statistics about these about the audience. For example, the EASA, European Advertising Standard Alliance, makes regular statistics about the audience and the audience of children and in television and in cinemas. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Italy, number 70.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to draw the attention of the presidency to the OC number 2, regarding the fact that the committee proposed to introduce healthcare classes without adding any extra hours. At first, I would like to make the committee notice that some of that projects are already enacted. Secondly, I'd like to say that it's really hard to introduce them without adding any extra hours. Well, would the committee explain how can teachers attend seminars if their work schedule is already full? Thank you.
Slovak Republic.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, you see, these people who are going to talk to you, like lecturers and professionals, they're just going to come like in a biology lesson. And this would work because these are not things that are going to be on a regular basis. Just if there is an expert, then he can come to their school. And we also debated a lot if we want to add an extra lesson, but most of the people don't have time for this because they have so much else to do in school. Thank you.
117, Hungary.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have two remarks, namely the first one being on point 9, the point about the free gifts. I think, in my opinion, it is the responsibility of the parents to decide whether they should get, let's say, a Happy Meal just because it has a free gift from it. I understand your point. I understand that you mean that this is a marketing catch for small children to get toys, but I believe that it is the parents' responsibility to decide whether it is worth it or not. And my second point would be on the operative clause 6, which states that the promotion of healthy food products should be done by marking the products with a common European symbol. My question would be that in some cases there are products which may be deemed borderline, like, as for instance potato chips that are done, I don't know, bio potato chips and things like that. So in some cases it is very speculation of whether these foods are actually which category they are in. And I would like to ask the committee whether they could define more clearly which food is to be considered healthy or not. Thank you.
The Netherlands.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your first question about the parents' responsibility. We also figured that the parents should be responsible for what they buy for their children, but we figured we could help them a bit by making the food less attractive, so when the children won't see on television that they can get a free toy if they buy fries at McDonald's or something. So the children won't already know they get a free gift at a meal before they go to that place. And second of all, on point 6, on the promotion of unhealthy food, there are some experts working right now on a list of unhealthy foods and healthy foods, and that will also determine on which food you get a mark and which not. And your question about the potato chips with like a biological sign on them, we won't give potato chips a sign because they're in the category of unhealthy food, as you can see in Appendix 4. So those won't get an extra mark from the EU. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Turkey.
Thank you, Mr. President. My question is about the OC number 4. Don't you think that it's easy to manipulate a system that is based on an electronic chip card, since people can do this by using a computer virus or directly stealing the card from someone else? And, for example, using a manual system or a fingerprinting software would be better.
So, did you want to know about what happens when the card is stolen? Or can you please rephrase the question?
Yes. So, I think that it's easy to manipulate this system because computer viruses can be used or the cards can be stolen.
France.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, this chip card would be an ID, and do you really think someone can steal your passport and go and say you're the person? I mean, if it's like really nominative, it's an ID and no one can steal it and go to a coffee shop and buy some drugs with your name and your photo. So it's not a problem. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Number 17, Sweden.
Thank you, Mr. President. Referring to Operative Clause 4, as you may know, most of the European countries within European Union, Sweden included, is alien to the idea of legalizing any kinds of drugs. I am concerned that this will cause most of an uprising within certain countries, that they would exit EU altogether. So my question is basically, can you make sure that this won't happen?
Can you please come to the question and rephrase the question?
Yeah.
Yes.
My question is...
And louder, please.
Louder?
Louder.
Okay. I'm concerned that, as you may know, most of the European countries is against the idea of legalizing any kinds of drugs. So, can you make sure that...
Take your time.
Yeah, thank you. I'm concerned that several countries may exit EU altogether. Can you make sure that this won't happen?
If you enforce this island.
Thank you, Mr. President. I invite the delegate to read clause 4 again, where it says that we suggest the cooperation between the EU DCA and the governments of the member states in order to decide on the creation of the designated venues. So really, we're not telling the countries to put in these venues. We are only inviting them to decide on it. And I don't think anyone would leave the EU just because of this. Thank you.
Number 4, Spain.
Thank you, Mr. President. Will drug dealers from the coffee shops be employees from the state with their 3 months of holidays in summer and all those things? And wouldn't people want to become drug dealers if this is so?
Where do the drug dealers come from and who are they? The Netherlands. Quiet, please.
I'm not 100% sure of your question, but I think I can answer it. Drug dealers right now are just people walking on the streets selling drugs to everybody, like really everybody they see, including the minors. And that was our problem with this resolution, that they can also sell drugs to minors. So by making drugs legal and controlling the stores and the spots where you can buy drugs, we can keep them off the streets, because if the buyers have nobody to sell them to, they will leave, because they won't have any jobs anymore. And then we can control the drugs within the store, so the drugs can't be bought by other drug dealers and be taken out of the store and be given to minors again. So we're controlling the whole issue by keeping the drugs within the store and competing with the drug dealers, so they will leave. Thank you.
Spain again, number 4. Would you like to ask more specific
will
questions?
they be employees from the state?
Will the store pharmacist be from the state? Netherlands.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes. Thank you.
Spain. Number 4, Spain again.
And are citizens gonna pay for drug dealers from the state?
France.
They're not going to pay for drug dealers. The point of our resolution is to avoid drug dealers. So they're going to pay for the protection of their child, because they don't want their children to have like drug dealers walking on the street. So they're paying for protection, not for drug dealers. Thank you.
We move on. Number 35, Portugal.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to congratulate for this resolution, but there's something missing to me, and it's what's the committee proposal when children, for example, are found consuming drugs or alcohol. You're just talking about preventing, but shouldn't there be, for example, harder measures against parents? Thank you, Mr. President.
Are the measures against permits? Can you please rephrase the question?
Yes. What's the committee proposal when children are found, for example, consuming? Shouldn't there be harder measures against parents who are responsible for them?
What happens when a child is Slovak Republic?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm not sure if I got the question right, but you're asking, like, what if a child is already addicted to drugs? Is that the question?
No, what if the child is found out to be using drugs?
Well, actually, like, the question of our committee was, like, what can the EU do to protect it? So it wasn't really our issue. And also we have the healthcare classes, so also, like, people can talk about it there.
The Netherlands, you may give a different answer.
Thank you, Mr. President. If you mean that with your question, that if a child gets caught, the parent should be punished harder, maybe? Yeah, well, some measures are taken in OC3 already. And furthermore, we had it on our priority list, but it was at the bottom, so we didn't have time to make another OC about parents. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Former Yugoslavian Republic of Macedonia.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a question concerning OC4. Having in mind that in most member states drugs are not allowed but are still widely used, don't you think that by enabling citizens over the age of 18 to legally buy them will only increase and stimulate their use? Thank you.
Luxembourg.
Thank you, Mr. President. So if you would know that in the Netherlands, less people consume drugs than in many other countries, and that is just because you can buy them legally over the age of 18, and in other countries you can get them illegally, unlegally. So, yeah. I hope I answered your question.
Former Yugoslavian Republic of Macedonia.
I didn't fully understand the answer.
Maybe you would like to ask a more specific question.
But don't you think that by enabling citizens to legally buy drugs will only stimulate their use?
If you make them legal, they will start using. The Netherlands.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, we looked into this and we found various studies. One from an Australian professor who made a study between two groups of people aged 18 to 24. For half of the group, soft drugs to buy soft drugs, it was legal, and for the other group, it was illegal. And by the end, they asked the two groups who of them had actually used soft drugs. And from the group where it was illegal, 30% of the people had still used drugs, and from the group where it was legal, only 20% had used drugs. So that's just one of the studies that show that legalization of soft drugs actually lowers the amount of drug users. Thank you.
Thank you very much. 98, Germany.
Thank you, Mr. President. I really appreciate that study, but I'm just thinking that soft drugs, like you defined them, also includes hallucinogens, and I think they're really dangerous for just everyone. They're proven to have impact on long term to your brain, so I don't think it's a good idea in legalizing something which is really dangerous for your physical health.
Bulgaria.
Thank you, Mr. President. We decided firstly on introducing these health classes, which will inform children about the hazard effects of the drugs. And secondly, introducing these coffee shops where they can buy these drugs legally. It would, how to say it? It will help actually people to understand that drugs are pretty bad for their health. So buying them will be controlled by the UDCA and by the government. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Number 1, Slovenia.
Oh, thank you, Mr. President. I didn't hear you first. I would like to say that a resolution as a whole is really well-reasoned, and I found it as one of the best until now. But I have just one tiny question regarding OC number 5. I wanted to ask, by how much would you like to increase the minimum taxation on unhealthy food products, and by how much would you like to decrease the taxation on healthy food products? Thank you.
Malta.
Oh, well, thank you, Mr. President. We created this kind of European Union Drug Control Authority that is going to give the minimum of the taxes which every government of each member state can try to control and create for each state. Thank you.
Denmark, you may add.
Thank you, Mr. President. We had a bit of a confusion here. That was 2 different courses, and the EU DCA will only be about soft drugs. The correct answer is that it will be up to the single national member state to choose how much they will raise the minimum taxes, because minimum taxes are very different. For example, in Denmark, they are like over 100% on many things, and in some countries they're almost aren't there. And then I just would like to add something also to the German answer before. there are many things that are unhealthy: chocolate, alcohol, soft drugs. But it will always be your own choice whether you want to do them or not, especially now when it's legal. If you don't want to do the soft drugs, you can just don't.
74, Estonia.
Thank you, Mr. President. My question is about OC number 4.c. Do you think it is really possible to ensure that drugs are consumed only at the designated venues, and by which means do you attempt to achieve it?
The Netherlands.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, we thought of the UTCA, EU DCA, to control the drugs and keep them within the store. So the idea is that people go into these venues, they have a card that registers how much drugs they have already purchased, and if they're not over their limit already, they can buy some drugs, go sit somewhere in the store or in the venue, and they can use these drugs if they want to, and then they can't take them out. So if they buy drugs, they have to be consumed in the store, and there will be like somebody at the door checking if nobody is trying to smuggle out drugs. Thank you.
Number 41, Latvia.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a question about EU DCA. Can't you just not do it and give the jobs, the assignments that you planned on giving to the EU DCA to EMCDDA, which is the already existing association or organization that's dealing with drugs? Thank you.
Denmark.
Thank you, Mr. President. We just had an amendment about this before, and I think that it got explained pretty clear. And the thing is, we felt that no other organ inside of the EU could handle this task, and therefore we have created a new one. Thank you.
Number 15, Spain.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to ask the committee who is going to control the production of drugs, the drug market, the government, or a private enterprise. Thank you, Mr. President.
Slovak Republic.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, our committee was on children's health and not really like who is going to produce what drugs. We are just trying to, we're just going to try to protect children.
Who's going to control the drugs? The Netherlands.
Thank you, Mr. President. The whole drugs industry we're trying to set up here will be controlled by the government, so also the people who grow these drugs will be from the government. Thank you.
The government will grow and control the drugs. Now, former Yugoslavian Republic of Macedonia.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to ask the committee if they may give me a definition what a drug dealer is.
Can you please say the last word again?
What a drug dealer is, definition.
Who is a drug dealer? Who is a drug dealer? France.
A drug dealer is someone who actually sells drug, and most of the time it's illegal. That's why we're installing these stores, because we don't want any drug dealers anymore. We want just someone who's going to sell the drug, but legally.
Former Yugoslavian Republic of Macedonia.
Thank you, Mr. President. But if you supply the people with drugs, doesn't that make you drug dealers?
Estonia.
Thank you, Mr. President. If you want to, you can call it that way. It does make us drug dealers, but we're legal, not illegal. So.
Did this satisfy you? Didn't. Denmark. Would you like to add something? Or the Netherlands? The Netherlands, please.
Well, the definition of drug dealer is somebody who sells drugs. And with drugs, in this case, we mean really drugs, so not medicines. And if the government starts selling drugs, then yeah, it makes us drugs dealers by definition. Thank you.
Number 24, Portugal.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to reinforce the points presented by the delegate of Spain. I would like to ask the committee if the government is really going to provide the people who buy drugs from those drugs? And I would like to ask also where those drugs going to come from? I mean, I can formulate again. Is the government really going to provide the shops with drugs, and where are those drugs going to come from? I mean, is the government going to have like public drug plantations or something like that?
Quiet, please. Where does the government build the drugstores, and where do the drugs come from? The Netherlands.
Thank you, Mr. President. That will be up to the individual governments. Thank you.
Every government grows its own crops and creates its own stores. Let's go on. 108, Bulgaria.
Thank you, Mr. President. My question concerns OC number 4, subclause C.
Silence.
It's about the venues within which drugs are purchased. I want to ask the committee, what are you going to do with so many high people at one place, and how could you control that at places where soft drugs are sold, actually hard drugs wouldn't be brought in but by someone of the clients, for example? How would you control that?
France.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, first of all, you can only buy a certain amount of drugs, which is going to be limited. And secondly, we want to remind you that we're just legalizing soft drugs, not hard ones. So if you just smoke a really limited quantity of drugs and soft drugs, you won't be killing each other. So there's no problem. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Number 30, Slovak Republic.
Thank you, Mr. President. My question is about IC number 1, and my question is how the teacher influenced the pupils when they're smoking.
Denmark.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, in many schools, especially in primary school, teachers are considered role models, like parents. Therefore, can it be very polite, or it will lay near to the children that they will begin to smoke if they have seen their teacher smoke all of the time. But it is really, really important for me to underline that it is a civil right to smoke for everyone, but we would like to keep it separated in the school's area, and therefore we have made it these ventilated areas where the teachers can smoke without any students. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. 113, Belgium.
Thank you, Mr. President. In the appendix number 4, you say, unhealthy food is any food that is not regarded as being conducive to maintaining health. Every food is conducive to maintaining health. You need fat, you need carbons, you need minerals, you need vitamins. So there is no unhealthy food according to this definition.
Denmark.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. Well, we have recently, as you may heard, rephrased, it must have been, number 7, OC number 7, to junk food. And junk food isn't good for you. You can sometimes eat junk food and probably anything won't happen, but it's a bad combination of food. And yeah, you could. You need fat, you need proteins, you need carbs. Everyone knows, but you don't need it in the doses that junk food gives to you. But of course, if you want to, you should have the possibility. No one is saying you shouldn't. We just wanted not to have influence on children. Thank you.
Last questions, number 93, Finland.
Thank you, Mr. President.
I have a question about OC4C, and that is, isn't it, would the person that is high in the store or venue be allowed to go out? And if that is the case, isn't it dangerous to let a lot of high people go out and like, because they can't drive and they will be like in the streets?
The Netherlands.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, that's what the Jutka is also for making sure that nobody gets out of the store while they're a danger to society. So, for example, somebody drives up with his car, goes in the store, smokes some weed, and then goes out again. He won't be allowed out until he's able to drive again. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Number 67, Ireland. Silence, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Can I just clarify that you do feel that by providing older people with drugs, that is beneficial in protecting younger people from drug abuse? I'm just wondering how you feel that that's beneficial at all.
Can you please speak a bit louder, maybe?
So in your question, it's about protecting children from drug abuse, and I don't see how providing older people with drugs is protecting the younger ones at all.
Germany.
Thank you, Mr. President. Legalizing drugs for adults will stop drug dealers who sell their drugs on an illegal basis also to minors. Because this is the fact, because adults can go into the venues and buy the drugs in an illegal way. So why should they buy them in an illegal way from drug dealers? So drug dealers are going to decrease, and that's why minors can't buy drugs anymore. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Last two questions. 102, Austria.
Thank you, Mr. President. Before a Spanish delegate said she had to congratulate the committee, I honestly have to say I can't. Referring to OC5, where it says increases the minimum taxation on unhealthy food products, I want to remember there have been an increase of taxation on cigarettes. It hasn't helped anything.
Spain.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, we're talking about different things because with cigarettes, we have seen that people are addicted, so they're going to continue buying them. But with food, it's different because parents just can't afford healthy food because it's more expensive. So we're recommending, because we can't increase the taxes, but we recommend the governments to increase the taxes so that it's easier for the parents and all households to buy this type of food. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Number 86, France. You have the last question.
Thank you, Mr. President. I suppose that was OC number 7, bullet point B. You would like the less children possible to see this junk food advertising, right? Then why did you choose to say only 30% of the audience instead of 70 or 80%?
The Netherlands.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, we also have to keep in mind that these companies want to make advertisement for their products. So in order for us to make a compromise between them being able to use the free market to to show their advertisement, and on our side make sure that that not too many children are influenced by them, we think this is the best solution. Thank you.
Seems to me that France wasn't very satisfied with the answer. Number 86, France, once more, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, yes, but I mean 30% is really low. It's not relevant, really.
Do you know that 30% is really low? Denmark.
Thank you, Mr. President. we thought that in the age between 0 and 12, the rules should be a bit strict, because kids in this in between 0 and 12 are very vulnerable towards advertising. So therefore, the rules are strict towards them, especially compared with the one under 18, where it has to be 50% that has to be under 18 before you can ban advertisements for junk food. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Who from the General Assembly may I call to give the speech against the resolution? Slovak Republic. Quiet, please. Please listen to him.
Thank you, Mr. President. Could you please again pay attention to the whole resolution? Let's start with the first OC. At the moment, many countries have implemented strict regulations to ban smoking from restaurants. And now this committee wants to create new smoking areas in schools in the direct environment of children. Smoking areas must be completely banned, in my opinion, because the children are very easy to schools in order to let's now get on to the OC number 4. You would like to legalize soft drugs, and if you do this, people will think, oh, drugs, they are allowed, they can't be so dangerous, so let's try it. And then they try it once, and then they get addicted to them. And after a certain time, the addicts want even harder and more drugs. And then this is the beginning of criminality. Then the next point is the OC number 7. We just discussed about this topic 3 days and didn't find out the difference between junk food and fast food. You just rephrased it after I've told it to you. So your research must be very detailed. Secondly, keep in mind that such a ban will create terribly losses in profit for TV stations as well as the junk food companies. So summing up, I just want to say that you're seriously suggesting to ban junk food advertisements, but at the same time you want to legalize drugs and create smoking areas at school. I think you don't need to be an expert to see that this is unreasonable and controversial. So please vote against the solution, as it will cause more problems than it would solve. Thank you.
Thank you. Who from the committee may I ask to give a speech in favor of the resolution? Germany.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished guests, honorable presidency, fellow delegates. I appreciate that you expressed your thoughts and concerns about our resolution in such an honest manner. The reason why we all got here together for this MEP is because we are Europe's future. As many of the speakers in the past days have already pointed out, Europe needs a vision for its future. It is our task to preserve the spirit of Europe. Therefore, we need to guarantee a healthier and safer life for the young European generation. For that, the Committee on Culture and Education decided on a resolution which takes harder measures to prevent children from smoking, alcohol and drug abuse, as well as unhealthy eating habits. A point of concern that was mentioned was about the authority EU-DCA. It was said that this authority already exists in Europe. But in fact, our EU-DCA is different to other platforms in Europe because it already has it also has an executive competence. So it will bring together the toll from all the countries and will manage a unified toll for all of Europe. Moreover, the commercial restrictions the commercial restrictions already exist in France, and in the alcohol industry, they already exist on a voluntarily basis. We are of the opinion that the young generation is more important than the profits of huge companies. For that, we need to restrict commercials in the sense we wrote in our resolution. Next to that, OC1 states that smoking areas should be that segregated smoking areas should be installed. We don't want to influence children because the school is part of the socialization of the children. So the children will want to do what the adults, the teachers, would also do. So we need to install segregated rooms for teachers to smoke, because smoking is also a civil liberty for teachers. In addition, we are of the opinion that legalizing drugs venues will stop the drug dealing scene. For that, this will lead to the fact that drug dealers can't sell their drugs anymore to minors, and that will stop minors from drug abuse. Next to that, alcohol is more dangerous than cannabis, so drug venues aren't as dangerous. Summing up, we have the strong belief that this resolution will lead to a better situation amongst the youth of Europe. Following the committee's task, this resolution secures the prosperity of Europe's spirit for the future by securing the safety of Europe's children. So in the end, this is what this resolution is about. Do we participate in a politics of lack of future, or do we participate in a sustainable politics with a prosperous young generation for Europe? So let us move on and guarantee the future of a young, safe and healthy generation by passing this resolution. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We shall move on with the voting. And the voting starts now. Silence. With 69 votes in favor, 66 votes against, no abstentions, with approval of the candidate countries and with approval of the committee presidents, this resolution has passed.